all the heads of state of the countries members of the United Nations are gathered in New York for the General Assembly. Now, one of the main issues that are going to be talked about is the crisis on Syria. And two of these presidents had the biggest words about the issue. One, Barack Obama, and the other, Vladimir Putin. Now, Margaret, here's one of the things that happened. Vladimir Putin came out and announced that Russia has actually just penned an agreement with Syria, Iran, and Iraq to share information and intelligence about the Islamic State. What is very curious about the situation is the fact that the United States did not have knowledge of these negotiations, and the agreement came as a surprise right before the moment Barack Obama came to the stage at the General Assembly and gave his address. Now, there's big differences in the approach that the United States have towards Syria. It's voiced, the Obama administration do not support the Assad regime. But Russia says, I think we need to support Assad. We need to support the fact that Assad is the only one fighting the Islamic State, and we're going to help them regardless of the abuse of power and the origin of all these crises. That was the repression that Assad had against the protesters. So they went off and they were very critical to each other. And I think this is very important because Russia is trying to establish itself as a big leader, almost at the level of the United States, in front of the rest of the world.
Well, we're talking about autonomous states in Iran, Russia, Syria, whether we like it or not, and Iraq, autonomous states. So if they want to make a formalized or informalized agreement without our knowledge or consent, I mean, with all due respect, we're talking about states with their own sovereignty. So, I mean, it's a shame that the way of the world is such where our relationships are this tattered. It really is. Yes. That conclusively, everyone has skin in the game when it comes to defeating ISIS, and it's unfortunate that there isn't more of an across-the-board policy. But if you look at our own foreign policy, we run amok so much in Syria. Even with our own weapons going lost and falling into enemy hands, our inability to train, and the fact that Russia has sent military personnel and put them on the ground in Syria, it's no secret that Putin and Assad are close. I mean, for crying out loud, Assad has been given one of the greatest allies in Vladimir Putin, and for us to be snubbed by the negotiation, I mean, okay. But let's not forget, we sanctioned Russia last year. We sanctioned Iran up until recently when we brokered a deal. So that's not surprising at all. And these tensions have been here. Look, we've seen these tensions play out in the UN before, except they were playing out not with the two world leaders. They were playing out with Samantha Power and Vitaly Churkin, representatives of Russia and the US respectively. This has been happening for a long time. It's no secret that there's this tension and this conflict. And it's no surprise at all that other world powers would be aligning to combat an issue. That's not shocking to me.
At the heart of it, the difference is that the Obama administration believes that the Assad regime is fighting legitimate rebels that are trying to take the power away from him, and the United States are trying to help them. Now, one of the things that happened is President Obama said that they are very dubious. The actual reason that Russia wants to be in Syria is to fight the Islamic State, because the drone operations that they have done so far, they have only covered areas of Syria where the rebels are, and there's no ISIL presence whatsoever. So they are very vigilant about the fact that this might be just a way to bolster,
to control the rebels,
exactly, so they don't put a weight on Assad regime, because not necessarily Russia is married to Assad. I think they want to have a hand in case that the world pressures Assad of the power. They have a say on who's going to come afterwards. Now, President Obama was very critical of the military escalation in Syria, in Ukraine, and at the same time, I think it's important to understand this is very angering to the United States, because they have 2 decades of investment in the region. The fact that Iraq, that in the eyes of the Bush administration could be our puppet in the area, now they are acting, as you said, as autonomous states, and I think that's very important to understand.
They have every right. So. I mean, we're not I understand.
But they went in with that idea.
An American frame of mind. We're the global leader of the world. Well, guess what? There are other sovereign states, and I would hate to see Syria become an Iraq. And unfortunately, it's gone to hell in a handbasket. And perhaps our involvement, our military involvement, defunct in this defunct way, because we want to actually put boots on the ground, but we'll funnel weaponry and money and all of this other stuff. So we're indirectly doing it anyway. I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing if we have states coming together wanting to defeat ISIS.
As long as they can get along. You know, this is the fear of many is the fact that we're going to have two of the biggest military powers involved in Syria, is the fact that they're not going to communicate against each other,
we're seeing
and
all
it's
of
going to be a
these-
proxy of a conflict in between Russia and the United States, because by any chance a drone from Russia targeting rebels crashes against a drone from the US targeting ISIS, and the escalation of violence is going to be real. Until they don't have a real agreement, and you know, the Obama administration have been trying to in diplomacy, try to work with the Kremlin. Kremlin has said, like, no, I'm going to do my own thing, and as they should, because they're an autonomous country. But at the same time, things are escalating in between Russia and the United States. Now it's official that both presidents had words for each other directly.
It's been official since the fall of the Ukraine. It's been official for a very long time.
I mean, officially in the terms that the presidents of all countries had speeches in the UN where they are attacking each other. I think that's
we haven't seen it like this before.
We haven't seen it like that, exactly. But we want to know your opinion. Please share it below in the comment section, and if you haven't, please subscribe to the Lib TV.